Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, dear sisters. And it's been a long time since, we've had a live session in this group because mainly because of the GST implementation and all the vacations which we had, things got really delayed. But subhanallah, we are back now, and alhamdulillah, we are back with a very important topic this time. And the topic is of Tarbiyyah of kids. Now, in the social media age wherein we are living, we are constantly bombarded daily with posts and messages on children upbringing in Islam. Those posters of those lovely Muslimas smiling at their kids, looking at you. And we have this, we also kind of idolize such parenting and we visualize it. But when we actually come to, implementing in our lives, we find that somewhere down the line, we are not able to do that. Like currently running the Islamic Kids Tour, I often receive messages from mothers who are like, Alia, can you suggest me some book which could help in the tarbiyah of my kids? And I always tell them, I have no magic book or magic wand to actually make sudden changes in your child's life. Yes, there are many things which may help in the tarbiyah of kids. Good books are one of those things, but it's not the only thing. So for the help of these mothers and for mothers like myself too, and for all our viewers, inshallah, we have today with us Sister Khafayah Abdulsalaam. And so, Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sister. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am well, thank you. And you?
Alhamdulillah, good sis. Now, I mean, I really admire Sister Khafayah. I have seen her profile because, I was searching a lot on Tarbiyyah of kids online. And when I came across her profile, her website and the work she's doing was really great. But for all those viewers who are currently do not know much about Sister Khafayah, can you tell me something about yourself?
Well, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. To start with, I'll just, like I always say to everyone, my primary role is being a mother because I enjoy being a mother. So, mother of 4 children, and they range from the ages of 26 to 15. Alhamdulillah, 2 boys, 2 girls. Right. Having said that, most of my work again is I have 2 roles, and I'm just going to say it briefly because I know for time. Is that in my professional world, I'm a payroll expert, and that is like paying people basically in simple terms. And secondly, the thing I really have a great passion for is then talking to sisters and how we be that great mother. About following the principles of Islam and also adopting the circular education as well, because we need we need them both because we're living in that environment. So I do a lot of coaching and counseling as well. So I train to be a life coach, do a lot of NLP, and actually now I'm studying to become a licensed counselor, because then again, lots of women, we need help in terms of relationships, not only in our marriage relationships, but our relationships with our children as well. So, and not only that, I also help women with businesses and anything we have a passion for that we want to do and how we can transform ourselves and, be of service. I like being of service, like helping sisters, and so that we can create that great community. Not only that, we are the role models of our children. So it's like, exactly, how do we do this? And, because we are the role models for the future leaders of Islam, and we have to be that role model for them. So I hope that helps.
Oh, that's great, subhanallah, alhamdulillah. Quite a lot of work you are doing in this domain of Islamic parenting, and that's quite essential because the kind of responsibilities which is there on Muslim mothers today, alhamdulillah, it's good that counselors like you have come up. And Allah Mubarak. But sister, I just want to know from your end, what do you mean? We hear a lot about children upbringing and stuff like that, and Tarbiyyah of kids. But what do we exactly mean by Tarbiyyah of kids, and how far do you think is it important?
Very, very important. So Tarbiyyah, for me, the understanding of that is, it's really encompassing, I would say. It involves quite a lot. So it's about upbringing our children, nurturing our children, right? It's about training, Islamic education. And, what it does is like you're developing a child, and it could be an adult as well, but we're talking about kids today. So we are developing that child's character. We're shaping their personality. And by doing this, we're instilling the principles of Islam in the child, making Allah the center of their being. And we know that for Tarbiyyah, it's all about the deen itself, and it's very, very important. So we look at the child's psychological being, social being, moral being, their spiritual being as well. And providing all of this, when we're saying we're nurturing them, we're providing all of this in a loving, secure, warm environment for them, where we allow them to blossom, where we allow them to be themselves. So for me, it's all about training, nurturing our kids to have that strong sense of faith. But mainly for me, I would say it starts with Allah. Connecting the child to Allah. So it's embedding the Iman into our children. How do we nurture Iman into our children? And I use the word nurture because we're guiding them, and we do it in a loving and caring way. And I know we say in like today's world, Islam is for every time. It spans time, generations, anything. And most of us tend to look away from Islam, and we look away from the Quran, we look away from the Sunnah, because we say we can't find these things in there. It is all in there. And when we look at Tarbiyyah, just to mention, let's look at Ibrahim alayhi salam, what he did with his son Ismail. That's about nurturing. When they were building the Kaaba, that's about him nurturing his son, giving them an Islamic principles, telling him how important it is to connect with Allah. We've got Yusuf alayhi salam. When he was very little, he had a dream. Who did he run to? His father, because his father has already instilled certain character, discipline. All of that was with him, and that's what carried him through the predicaments he went through with his brothers. And we look at Anabi Nuh alayhi salam. He did everything he could. His son still did not come along with him. So I'm just mentioning those to give us an idea of things. Is that so again, it's just a continuous, comprehensive process. It continues. We don't stop. But we do it with love. Hope that answers it, because it's a really very important topic.
That's a very important question, and that's why I think I had read in the Quranic verse also. I think it was in Surah Tahrim, which suggests that ward off your kids and your family from the fire of the hell, and that clearly shows how important upbringing of children is, and how important role parents play in the same. And that's what takes me to the next question. Actually, currently we have no viewers. Maybe most of them are busy collecting their kids and all.
Okay,
so, it's very difficult for me to actually decide, how is the broadcast going on. But anyways, not an issue. As soon as, inshallah, if there's someone who pops in, we could really know, because at times it happens, the whole session is going on. You don't realize that it's not being broadcasting perfectly.
That's right.
Not a problem, inshallah. But I think as far as I've checked, everything's going on smoothly.
Okay.
So that brings me to our next question is, what important role as parents can we play in the tarbiyah of kids?
Okay, then that brings me on to what you actually said there about the verse of Surah Tahrim.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is, when Allah says, save yourself and your family from the fire of hell. So Allah talks about us first. Save yourself. So we as the parent, we have to it starts with us. We have to train ourselves. We have to educate ourselves, because you can only give what you have. You can't give what you don't have. So why it's important for us as the parents is that once a child is born, a parent is born. So we have to be the role model for the child. So, and we have to live. Whatever you want your child to become, you have to become it yourself first, and you have to be it. So what are the values do you have? What are the beliefs do you have? We have our Islamic beliefs. We have, I think our first starting point as a parent is we start where, Nabi Luqman alayhi salam started with his son about, again, I'll go back to connecting with Allah and avoiding shirk. So for us, as a parent, we have to have an understanding of the 5 pillars of Islam. We should be practicing. And then we should also establish the 7 pillars of faith about the believe in Allah, believe in his books, believe in his angels. And that we will be departing that information to our children. What values do we want to instill in our children? For me, in our home, it's about having self-respect for each other. That is very key for us, because each family will have their own values and their own beliefs. And something you want your children to have, reading the Quran with them. They have to see you reading the Quran. They have to see you pray regularly. They have to see you keeping your promise. And we talk again in my family about honesty and being fair, caring and loving. All those values are important for me and my family. So we have to, inshallah, make sure we live those values. And us as a parent have to live it, because our children will become us, whether we like it or not. How many times have you and I said, we're not going to be like our mothers, and we do exactly what our moms do? So those are the things that happen, isn't it? That happen in our subconscious mind. So Tarbiyyah is something that prepares the child not only for this world, we are preparing them for the life after. And that's why I'm saying we connect to them with the principles of Islam, so they know how to look after their parents. They know how to look after themselves. Because they say to us, Sadaqah Jariyah, isn't it? One of the things that will live after us once we've gone is the child that prays for us. And, inshallah, may we have children that remember us and pray for us when we're gone. I think that is so important, but that's something that's overlooked.
Right, true.
Yeah. So are you a parent who prays for your parent? Do you look after your parents? Do you see, are you doing that? So if you're doing that, your child will do it. So again, it's about how to develop the child's character, their social being, their intellectual being, their spiritual being. There's a lot there, and we don't have enough time to go into it. So I'm just touching on the surface of these things. How do we do it? We can only do it if we ourselves are actually, living it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Whoever is coming in, just giving a salam or something, so we know you are there and everything is going on well. Whoever is entering, just do that. And that is very important thing. One thing which you said about parents doing it, and at most of the times I have seen, sister, that at times parents are reading the Quran or they are doing Islamic activities, but in the absence of kids. Like they say, I have to read the Quran when the kids are gone to school. So I think it's very important that even if they are practicing Islamic things like reading Quran or something like that, they should do it in the presence of kids. Because, sometimes we find it very convenient to do all these things in the absence of kids. But it's important, I think, to involve kids and do it in front of them. So, they have an idea about what we are doing.
That's right.
So,
and it's about, very nice. And it's also why it's important for us is also for us as parents to be reading them stories about the Sahaba. Tell them about the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We need to educate ourselves about the Sirah. And then we pass that on to our children. What about the morning du'as? We do the morning du'as in the morning and in the evening. When I started off with my kids, instead of doing nursery rhymes, we did the morning adhkar. And we do it in the evening. You just have to cultivate that Islamic home. That is what I'm saying. It's not only that we're Muslims on the outside, and then when we come inside, we're like everyone else, where we're watching TV all the time. And I'm not saying don't watch TV, but let's make sure our home environment is Islamic and the children can identify with that. Because something I wanted to say earlier on is that Islamic identity, Yaqub alayhi salam had built that, instilled that into his son. Yusuf alayhi salam. So he knew his identity, he knew his lineage, he had his character defined already, his personality had developed, and he knew his values, he knew his principles, and he stuck by them. And I know I'm stressing that point, but these are things as parents that we don't normally, I think, we think about. But we have to have those values, those beliefs, establish that within ourselves, and then we're able to give that to others.
That's a very valid point you said. And one more thing which I wanted to know is, like, in current scenario, in the world which we are living today, how do you think we can help inculcate Islamic values in children?
I think the way we need to do it is in an interactive way, and in a way that is not viewed as boring, because I see that's what lots of people say, that it's boring. So, and how am I saying this? We find that there's some interactive media out there. There's one called Ali and Sumaya. I really love that program because it shows them how to pray, so they can see those little, it's animated, and that's something that they can, what's it called? It's something that they can relate to. So how do we establish these values? Going back to that question, again, is starting where I would say another Luqman started. And I advise everyone to go and look at those verses. How we establish those values is we start with Allah, even having family meetings where you have to define what your values are. Once you define that, we start having those family meetings, and we call them, shura, just giving them, telling them about the stories of important Sahaba. Hadith is another way of establishing those values, because there's lots of values, there's lots of, they can look at the, let's go back to Nabi Ibrahim, let's go back to Nabi Luqman alayhi salam. Why I said that is because Nabi Luqman alayhi salam, I always use this in my classes, but I really won't have time to go into it all of it right now. So Nabi Luqman alayhi salam, he tells his son to believe in Allah. He tells him that, not to show off. He tells him to establish salah, to believe in the books, the Quran. He tells his son how to do all of that. And he tells him how you forbid bad things and you incorporate what is good. Because they say to us, even as parents, we should move away from what is evil and we continue doing good. We have to proclaim, we have to show our children what is good. So I think if you go to Surah Luqman, please go and look up all the values there that he has, he spoke to his son about. And that's very, very important. Like I said, it will be your homework. So if you can just go off and do that, inshallah. Going back to what I was saying, some other values. So we're talking about so there's a ways of we can establish the values. And we get to talk to them about role models, different role models. We can look at the Sahaba. We look at Khalid ibn Walid, there's Umar radiallahu anhu, there is Abu Bakr, there is Anas. So looking at the younger generation of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how they adapted Islam, how they lived the values of Islam, how they lived the Quran. We need to do that with the children. So it very, very important is giving them those role models. And also for us as parents, the values, again, is because we want them to have, some values could be, we want them to be honest. We want them to be telling the truth, and we want them to keep their promise. When we promise our children, we need to keep our promise. So if we're saying to them, I'm going to take you out today to see Auntie Jamila, if you can't, give them a valid reason as to why you can't, if that makes sense. Don't say, I'm going to do this, and don't do it, because then again, they will lose trust. So if we want them to be trusting and in their values, in the way they live their lives, we have to live that as well. Some other ways we can do these values is sitting down, and like I said, having little Quran sessions, even if it's just reading it with them for 10 minutes, reading hadith with them. There's lots of hadith on character building, and adab al-mufrad is very, very good for that. It's something as, how do we eat? You know, what the du'as we say when we wake up, the du'as we say when we're getting dressed in the morning, all of those are there for them. Also, we need to show them love and affection. That is really, really important, because if they don't have it, they can't give it to other people as well. We show them love, we show them affection, and we have to show empathy. We have to be very empathetic parents. So we understand our child. Sometimes they get frustrated, they're going through things. What are you going through? We need to understand that. Tell them, yeah, I get what you're feeling. Sometimes children cannot express themselves properly. And if they can't, just tell them, draw how you're feeling. And they probably might be able to express it in that way. But they know that, okay, mommy understands me. She knows they know mommy understands me. She feels me. And she is, and then you offer solutions as to how, you know, they can get rid of that feeling, even if it's something frustrating them. It could be they're upset with a friend, they're upset with a sibling. It's just like how, you know, and being empathetic is just showing that I might not fully understand what is going on with you, but I'm with you and I'm here for you. And they know you love them. Importantly, very, very important, is showing that you love the child, even if you're being firm with them on an issue. Another way of creating values within a child, I would say, is making sure you have boundaries. Boundaries and routines are very important for children. So when a child knows that they've got a daily routine, and like I said, it starts with the Quran, probably doing in the morning, praying together, eating together in the evening, you're helping them with their homework. We're talking about the seerah. We're going out into the community to help. You know, we go to the community, we help out in the community. And it could be taking them to an orphanage. It could be taken to, homeless people. So they begin to have a sense of what it is out there by giving them these boundaries. So when they cross these boundaries, they have the consequences. Now, I might be going into something else that we might be discussing later, but they know what they have to, they know the rules that they have to live their lives by. And some families, we don't have these. And because the child doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, the parents are so relaxed, they end up doing all sorts of things and they start misbehaving. And then when we show that we don't understand what they're saying or what they're doing, then they begin to misbehave because they're trying to get your attention. So they do all sorts of things to start getting your attention. So creating those boundaries, everybody understands what the rules are within the home. I'm not saying have so many, but have a few that everyone can abide by. And something as simple as, I would say to my children, you can all express your own opinions, you can have your own ideas, but you must not be rude to each other. Self-respect, self-independence. We need to show children how to do this. Another great way of helping children shape their values in life and their beliefs, because these are the things, whatever we give them now is their toolkit to navigate through life and to help them, you know, navigate their way through the cultural environment that they're growing up in. So what we need to do is give them accountability and responsibility, allow them to have choice. And it could be something, and letting them, it depends on the age of the child. So for instance, your little ones, you can let them help you fold the clothes. The ones that are old enough to cook, let them cook simple meals. Even if it's something as writing up a shopping list, something, give them a little book on a hadith, let them read it and explain it to you. Let them reflect upon it. And those are the things that we need to give them. Let them have choice. You know, instead of us telling them so many times that, commanding or instructing all the time, I say do this, I say do that. No, we want to give them choice. So if a child doesn't want to brush their teeth before they go to bed, you can say to them, do you want to brush your teeth right now? Or do you want to brush it when you're just about to go into bed? You know, with an adult child, you could say to them, do you want to do your homework right now as soon as you've come from school? Or do you want to do it after dinner? It's about giving them choices, accountability, responsibility. And the moment you start giving them responsibility, you see them, you're beginning to shape them, and they're beginning to have focus. They will have that discipline, and they would also know how to negotiate their ways through life. Having these shura meetings, I want to go back to that, because having family meetings is also preparing a child on how to negotiate, how to come up with ideas. You also have sibling rivalry, which is a whole topic on its own. But if there's conflict between siblings and we have a meeting, we discuss, what you've done to upset one person, and you let them explain so they can see from the other person's point of view what they've done that's upsetting. You find out that they're learning conflict resolution as well. You see, they're learning all these things. And these are the things, the values, these are the tools, I would call them, that they would need later on in life as they grow into adulthood. And it's whatever we give them now that would be, inshallah, that would help them through life when we're not there. And whatever we give them now, we should be able to be, like I said, develop that character. We should develop their social being, their psychological being, their spiritual being, in a manner that when they leave home, they know what to do. We're not going to be there with them all the time. So they need to know, this is what I need to do to get my way through life. Inshallah, we're raising well-rounded adults. They're going to become parents. They're going to be in our positions sooner or later. So not only are we raising children, we're raising them to become, productive parents, inshallah, later on in life. One thing I also want to say is anything we do, we need to connect them back to Allah. If my children want anything, teach them, do to.Look, do your wudu, do to.Look and ask Allah. And then He will give to your parents. To always connect them to Allah. And I always say to most of my clients that 80% of your job is done if your child has that link between him and Allah. Knowing that when mom is not there, Allah is there. If that helps. I hope the few words there would have helped answer that question.
That's a very valid point, and that's what I come across, sister, that most of the times parents are complaining that their children are just behaving like kids. Children who have crossed even 14-15 years are behaving like kids. So I think somewhere down the line our behavior towards them is important. Like, I think I just can't remember the name of the Sahabi. He was 17 years and he was leading the army, he was leading the people. That itself showed the level of responsibility and the level of maturity that person has. But if you compare a 15-16-year-old person right now, he'll be so immature. I think somewhere down the line, the point wherein you said that they should be held responsible is a very, very valid point. And I think that is something wherein the parents of today lack in, because we are kind of pampering our kids most of the time. We are not preparing them to, handle situations independently. So that is a very valid point. And salams to everybody who's entering. Walaikum salam.
Okay. One thing, sister, as well is I always say, I think one of the problems we might have is where we look at the Western world when maturity or adulthood starts at the age of 18. When we look at Islam, it tells us, adulthood starts from childhood to the age of puberty. So in my home, I don't use the word teenager. We rarely use it because the children will do what you tell them to do. So if they believe I don't attain adulthood until I'm 18, they will be behaving like kids. So with my child, as soon as you hit the age of puberty, I'm saying to you right now, the responsibility is on you. Islamically, you're accountable for you're accountable for your actions. It will be recorded for you, in the nicest possible way. So if we open them to that, at some people, it hit the age of puberty at age 10, 11. So if we're doing that with 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, once they hit the age of puberty, the moment I'm saying you're giving them that responsibility, the accountability, they've got the right discipline, they've got the right values, they've got the right adab, and we've trained them in a way they've got good personality, they've got good character. we will see them doing what you've just said. I'm not saying lead wars, but they will be able to take on responsibility because they would have attained adulthood at an early stage. What we're seeing nowadays is extended childhood because people are just not hitting that age of maturity that they would have hit probably during your time or my time, and we're just seeing that the childhood is just going on and on. And yes, parents are pampering their children. And again, I think that is because of what goes on in the outside world. So we think.
Wanted to know from your end, we were continuing with this session. First, we were discussing about upbringing of children. So the next question which I would like to ask is about disciplining of kids. And that is of prime interest because, especially regarding the Quran.
Yeah, disciplining kids. Now, I don't even know if that's the right word to use. And this is just my opinion, because then it sounds like, we're sound like you're being in the army or something like that. Now, I think the way to do it is that we need to understand that every child is unique. And discipline really, I think in its sense, it just means like correcting behavior. So we shouldn't be going all out, all right, so I'm not, some people do all sorts of things, shout, scream, punish the child. It's discipline. What I want to say is not about punishment. It is about correcting behavior. And so what we have to do, to starting with discipline, is about reinforcing, I would say, positive behavior. So if you focus on the behavior you want, do not focus on the behavior you don't want. Because with children, what you focus on, you see, they say energy flows where the focus goes. So if our focus is mainly on what they're doing wrong, that is what we're always going to get out of our children. So sometimes when I say positive reinforcement, is that we catch them in situations or they make exhibiting behaviors that is really good, and we praise them for it. I'm not saying praise them all the time so it loses its value, but we are praising them for things that they're doing good. Hello?
Yeah, I can continue.
You can continue. Okay. So what I was saying is that we should establish and reinforce positive reinforcement. So that is that we praise them in a situation so that we find them doing something good. And then, we might thank them if they've taken their plates to the sink, or a sibling has stayed at home and looked after the younger one. And we catch good behavior and we praise them for that specific behavior. Just say to them, I like the way you did, you played with your friend Amina, or or I like the way you helped our next door neighbor, you helped to carry the shopping. Are you there? That another thing is that we give consequences, and I think I spoke about consequences earlier on. I know we focus a lot on discipline, is that how do we do it, but there's just no right or wrong way of doing it.
Yeah, just go ahead with the answer.
Okay. So we were just saying about discipline. So just quickly, I wanted to I've said a few things already, but one thing again is about I've talked about positive reinforcement, and the other thing I want to say is about consequences. I think that's where I stopped. So if we create consequences in the home, so the child knows that there's certain rules in the home, because the children love to be guided. So if they know the certain consequences of their actions, if they're naughty or they're being rude, they need to know what would happen. Now, for every home, it's different, because you need to look at the age of the child, the circumstances, and the factors surrounding what they're doing. So the other thing that I was saying is that the consequences. Now, you can ask children also to come up with consequences. So if they do not go to bed on time, they're not doing their homework, they're not brushing their teeth, they go out with their friends, they come back late, we ask them to come up with the consequences for those actions. And you find out when you do this with the children, they will eventually, they've actually come up with the consequences. So they know that by doing this, I'm the one who's going to be in trouble. And they also came up with the consequences, so they're more than likely to live by it.
All right.
All right, I didn't stop. I carried on. So I don't know if that...
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You can carry on.
Yes, I carried on. So I was just saying about, helping let the kids define their own boundary, the consequences if they breach any of the boundaries. The other thing we need to look at is making kids know and like own their own decisions as well. Make their own decisions on certain things, so we're not instructing them and telling them off all the time. So sometimes we need to overlook certain behavior, encouraging them to have self-discipline. To have self-discipline as well. And then, so when we say self-discipline, so we teach them, if they're having a feeling, they're getting upset, like I said earlier on, we need to understand what that feeling is, why they're getting upset, and where is it coming from, and help the child to understand that feeling. And when that feeling is coming, how do they deal with it? The other thing I was saying is let them own their own decisions. Give them some space to make their own decisions, because one great thing is away from them of making mistakes, because it's through these mistakes that they learn how to correct certain actions and certain behavior. So if they don't have, if we don't instill certain, morals or behaviors in them, they would not know how to get things right when, how to put things right when they get things wrong. So if they have self-discipline, they should also know how to identify inappropriate behavior and stop it themselves. So we need to give them that self-discipline on how I would say to do it. Now, if we look at the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we talk about the child, you only instruct the child to go and pray when they're age 10. We start with age 7, and at age 10 we command them to pray. Those for me are our own guidelines as well when we start discipline. If we want to introduce discipline, because salah is the most important thing we do. And look at the guidelines for salah. Yeah, so we, if we're not supposed to touch them, so why would we touch them for anything else? So we use the guidelines for salah as well, but also make sure it is age specific. Look at the child's age, and like I said before, what is the circumstances around what they're doing? Are they just doing it to seek attention and they're messing about, or is there genuinely something going wrong? So just make sure they're age appropriate. And again, it's finding about what is going on with the child. Don't just go off and discipline them. I've just continued talking, so I don't know if it's being recorded. So then again, just make sure it's age appropriate. Look at the circumstances. And another thing about discipline is we need to because I say parenting is all about us, the parent. So we need to watch our stress levels as well, and to manage our own behavior and manage our own emotions. It's important for us to manage our own emotions. We will be able to help our children as well. So sometimes our stress levels could be really high. You're running around taking the kids to school, you're picking them up, you've got things to do at home. So your stress levels might be high. So your tolerance levels are really low. So if a child does something, you just snap at the child. So you also understand your stress levels and understand the stress levels of the child before you introduce any type of discipline or, And when we're talking about discipline, we don't use physical force. It is condemned in our religion, and we don't do it. There's many other ways of doing it. So if we reinforce positive behavior, we focus on the behavior, because some of us label the child as well. We need to move away from labeling, saying the child is bad. We're using words that are horrible. These words can leave scars forever, for life, on the child. So we should be careful in our choice of words, our language, and use the right and the appropriate language for the child when you're speaking to the child. The appropriate language, point out to them what they have done wrong, and ask them to suggest ways they could have done it differently, and they will always come up with ways of how they can do things differently. Sister, I've carried on. Like I said, I carried on.
Yes, I know. I don't know how far is it coming in, because even I don't know if the people are able to hear or no. But okay, anyways, it was as it is the last question.
Yeah, so
But
I just talked to things about, I don't know if it was recorded or people have picked up what I was saying. I've just said that, we watch our stress levels, the child, what's their, and the child's levels, and we also manage our emotions. And if I think I've lost you again. Assalamu Alaikum. As well, and our emotions. And do not, which I would strongly say that sometimes when we're angry, do not discipline the child when you're angry. You remove yourself from the situation. Put yourself on timeout instead of a child. I don't favor timeout, so I won't talk about it, and that's just for me. Sometimes we need to put ourselves on timeout. So when a child is just being a child, because their role is to push our buttons, their role is to upset us. So we need to manage our emotions, we need to manage our anger. And when we discipline the child, we need to be in control. The moment we start shouting, screaming, we're losing control. It's not to say that we won't shout, because we're human beings, it would happen, but we should try and managing our emotions, managing our own behavior as well. And sometimes we get upset because we are actually seeing something in the child that reminds us of something about ourselves, and then we get annoyed. So most of what I've said, I don't know if I might have to repeat it at a later stage, I hope it's been picked up, is to do really with ourselves, making sure we're in control, and make sure we've taken all the appropriate actions, we understand the situation before we move to discipline the child. I hope all of that helps.
Yeah, I hope inshallah it's all gone, but because it was of advice which you have given, inshallah. And what I would suggest is, I don't know how far is it gone, but this piece of advice I have recorded it at least on my Be Live session, and inshallah I'll try to see if it's not worked out, I will try to send it out across to everyone. So inshallah people could benefit, because it was a really very nice piece of advice. And the last thing which I would like to say is, I hope it's working because it's video is getting stuck.
But I just didn't. Yeah, it's been a bit.
Just ask you that, like I have a 7-year-old son, and he hears this F word from his friends quite often, and he keeps repeating it at home. So initially I'd instructed him nicely. I told him it's bad to say such bad words. Then I told him in a sterner manner, but he does it alone with his friends. So what should be an ideal approach now? Because a 7-year-old is too young to understand about, sins and things like that, about the seriousness of what he's saying. What is the ideal way to instruct such young kids, especially when they're using such words, when they see the kids in school?
Yeah, so we have to kind of desensitize it, don't make it, because if you emphasize it so much, he will think, oh, this is interesting, and it might continue. Another way, just quickly, because I don't want this to cut off again, is to replace it with another word. Tell him, if you think of saying that naughty word, which is not great, do it in a fun way with him. Tell him that word is not great. We don't like saying that word at home because it's not good. And relate it, like I said, to Allah. Allah likes us saying good words. So when that word pops up in your head, say to him, what word can you replace it with? Tell him to come up with a lovely word, and you have a few words, the good words that, can replace that word. And you keep doing that with him. So you want to get rid of it, but in a nice manner. So whenever that word pops up, we tell him, what word can you think of? So let him come up with a word. So instead of using the F word, say, oh, I think what you're doing is funny, what you're doing is fantastic. Find some other words that begin with F that can replace that word. Did you get what I said there?
Yes, yes. Actually, I can hear you completely. It's just I don't know, my camera is going still, but
Okay,
I
I
can
can
hear you
continue talking
completely.
if the camera is going. Oh yeah, that's fine. I continue then. So yeah, so it's just like, just let's replace it with other words. So we tell him nicely, don't emphasize it too much, and sometimes you just have to ignore it. And you know, if he continues, then you might just say, you know, you're going to have to, you know, set him aside, and just give him, if he continues with it, intentionally. But you know, just work on using other words to replace that word, and you know, I think that's a way. We just have to continue. And with things with children, we have to continuously work at it. We can't just say once or twice and then just think, oh, it's all going to stop. It will eventually fizzle out if you do not pay a lot of attention to it and replace the words. Because the moment you keep replacing that word, his brain will engage with the new word, inshallah. Okay, I can't hear you right now. If you can hear me. Yeah.
It's too ridiculous.
Okay, it's back.
Okay, with that, I know,
Yeah.
I don't know if the camera is going still. That's why I try to reconnect it.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly. If there's any viewer who is watching, there's a viewer who's watching, can tell us, you know, what's happening, because I can't understand. The camera is going still. So that is why I reconnected. So it goes blank for some time.
But can they still hear my
Ideally,
voice?
I don't know. Yeah, I can hear you completely. I don't know. It's something going wrong. My camera is going still. But
right.
anyways, not a problem, inshallah.
So I can't hear your voice. If you can hear me, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We will
I couldn't
just
hear your
end
voice.
this session. Yeah, I can. We will just end this session. And if anybody has any queries, I think we will later on tell them to post or send across, and which can be responded later, because that would be a better idea. Because and also I think the viewers cannot see it because video is getting stuck.
Okay, stuck again. So, oh dear.
Can you just give a last piece of advice and we'll finish this? Just give a last piece of advice and we'll finish this session.
Okay, so for me, I wanted to say that, you know, just be who you want your children to become. So you've got to be their role model, and just lots of dua as well, because parenting, you know, each child doesn't come with their own manual. So for us, it's just make lots of dua to Allah to guide us and how we can become the best parents and raise well-rounded, I would say productive, healthy Muslim kids.
Discussion to be done, and a lot of parents are quite inquisitive, but in the last part of it we just messed up on things a bit. But inshallah, no issues. Things are not under our control. But anyways, Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and all those who joined in, who are viewing us later, inshallah, I hope you benefit out from it. And before the session, just finish it off. Okay. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. I'll just end this broadcast. I seriously need to end now.
Okay.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair, Sister Khafayah, for being there. Alhamdulillah. It was really, really nice enlightening you. But I think we, because of the last question, I think